Welcome everyone to the December 2nd, 2024 Messinic Regional School District School Board meeting. I want to welcome people who are in the audience here and also people online. Pledge of Allegiance. Stacy, would you lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Stacy. Call this meeting to order. We only have one agenda adjustment, and that's a special school board meeting that will be held on the 9th of December at the same time, 6 o'clock. The next meeting after that will be on the 16th. And the first order of business tonight is the review and approval of the minutes from November 18th, 2024. I know.
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes as they are.
Okay, Mitchell makes a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Do I have a second? No, I'll second it. I second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have an issue in here that we have 4 people, but it's minutes and we'll be able to get by that because the chair can oversee the approval of them, but it's a 2-2. You're not voting no, you're voting essentially in absentia. So the minutes are approved unanimously by half the board. I have no remarks tonight other than I hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. It's nice that we're beginning to wrap up the budget process, and I want to thank the ABC and certainly everyone around this table and many, many, many more who can't be with us tonight because they have a personal life. But the work that has been put into the budget right down to line item by line item has been tremendous. I'll also report that we'll be picking up negotiations tomorrow at 2:45. And it feels optimistic right now. I think we're in a good place in negotiations, and I'll report back as soon as I have further information on that. Mr. Elijah, the floor is yours.
All right, so I had a couple of things I wanted to mention. I missed the last meeting. I'm sorry about that, but so I was going to touch on just how the fall season ended for all of our sports real quick. So our golf team won another state championship, which is great. And we had multiple cross-country athletes, runners, who also went on to states. Unfortunately, the field hockey team and volleyball team and soccer team all lost in the playoffs. But every team made it, and there's a drastic improvement from last year in each of those teams. And then so that was fall season. Winter season is starting off pretty good. I know there's a couple new coaching staff that we've hired over the past few years. From what I've heard, the basketball coach, I mean, I've practiced with him. He's a really good guy. I like him. All the other players seem to really like him. The wrestling coach, I know Ben Shippey now stepped up because Mr. Taylor's had to focus his time on the vice principal gig. And he's, from what I've heard from other wrestler people, that he's doing really good there too. And then, so one other thing I want to talk about is NHS has started a new, I want to say initiative, and we're allowing tutoring to any students who may need it, any grade in the high school. And it's already fully booked, which I'm actually happy to see pretty much. So now kids are getting that extra one-on-one time with other students, and they'll be able to actually learn a lot from that. And then one thing that's coming up that the school is doing is a penny sale, which is happening on the 7th of December. It's for the senior class, the fundraiser or whatever. And then there's a total of 72 items that got donated this year, which I believe last year I was told it was like 58 or something. So it's gone up quite a bit, I'd say. And we're still getting donations, but that's all I really had for this.
Okay. I love the idea of the tutoring.
Yeah.
Student to student. Penny sale is going to be held where?
In the gym at the high school.
Okay.
What are the hours of that?
I'm not quite sure on the hours. Do you know?
For
9 to 1.
sale, yeah.
9 to 1. All right. And yeah, they start pulling numbers at 1.
So that
Cam?
anything tutoring is awesome.
Yeah.
Is there any way to put it in a newsletter or something so we can get those adapted? Is there any-
It's in our draft.
It is, okay. That's awesome. Well done.
It's great. Ellen, do you have anything? Nope. Thanks, Elia. It's all good news.
Yeah, no
I'll see you
problem.
at the penny sale. Dr. Pogorzelski.
Good evening. I have a few things that I'd like to, that I prepared to say. First of all, I want to congratulate Highbridge Hill. Last time at the board meeting, we were talking about the CSI designation and the information had been embargoed, but at the time we did know that Highbridge had exited their CSI status. So congrats to Chris and the staff and the students at Highbridge and the parent support. A lot of hard work went into the planning for the different plans that had to be put into place and the steps, and we're not out of the woods. We still have to continue with the forward momentum that we have. I also want to commend BMS staff. So one of the cohorts that was tested and received the designation is at Boynton. So in tracking that cohort, Boynton did a really good job in intentional work at making sure that the testing environment, the testing information was sacred, so to speak. And so all three of our schools are schools of good standing right now. So that is wonderful news for the district. Congratulations, Chris, your staff, students, and Kevin, congratulations as well. Last week, I met with Marcia Therian from Work Camp New England, and I had 2 pamphlets kind of that were going around. They are a Christian-based organization that essentially they described it as a mission trip. They bring a group of people to your town, to your community as a missions trip from kids from all over the country. They were looking to stay at one of our schools, use the cafeteria, stay in our schools, and then do projects within our community. So they would work with local churches, the welfare officers in Greenville, New Ipswich, social worker, to try to figure out what ways can they help building handicap ramps, installing, they can do roofs, they can do windows. They'll, if they're working on a house, they will also tend the yard, stack wood, mow the lawn. So there's typically about 300 to 400 people that come with them. They come for about 2 weeks. And there's about 5 or 6 people in each group. There's an adult in each group. It's overseen by a general contractor. So they came in essentially looking far out in the summer of 26 or the summer of 27. They have references that have came out from other school districts. They're very, very positive. It's something that I'll be continuing to look into, and potentially something we might want to consider a benefit to our community. Michelle Tatro, our technology director, is currently working on mapping out a new design for our website. We are really looking for a sleeker, more efficient, user-friendly interface. It's been a complaint from staff, community alike that the interface is not super friendly. So we're working on that. We're meeting tomorrow to discuss the mapping, and we're hoping to be able to roll out something in early January. Michelle is also currently in the process of onboarding 2 new programs that are attached to Power School. One is a 504 tracking and delivery system. So we're not using paper, for people to be signing off on information. So any student who has a 504, it will be uploaded into Power School, and any teacher who is assigned to them will have access to that right through Power School. Another system that Michelle is working on, and there will be additional trainings provided to our staff, our administrative staff, is the enrollment tool, and that's going to allow parents to go in directly to Power School and edit their contact information or edit their email address or their phone. That also has been a complaint that, it's cumbersome. Our process is cumbersome. So we're working on that. It will allow registration through that platform as well. So we are hoping to soft test this coming from January to June, and then really roll that out at the beginning of the year next year. I'm currently working with David Franz on a podcasting project. In the new year, I'll be interviewing a handful of seniors, and we're going to call it Messinic Memories. We're really going to be focusing on students' time at Messinic and what they're going to remember when they leave. Depending on how this goes, how the editing works, and if I'm going to partner with one of his classes, I may expand it to include any senior who is interested. At this moment, we're probably talking about 5 or 6 kids, voluntary students who are interested. So I'm excited about that. This Wednesday night, weather permitting, is the community conversation on the language that we use in schools. Again, this is in response to seeing a dramatic increase in 3 different areas related to language: violent and threatening language, sexually explicit language, and racially charged language and use of symbols. So we're going to be tackling that heavy topic with parents. If there is inclement weather and it's canceled, we will record the presentation and put it out. We're not going to reschedule, as this is a very busy time of year for people.
What time is that?
That's at 6 o'clock at the high school. We put a message out about that today. I also wanted to note that we have responded to the recommendations that were made by CAST. School board member and leader of the CAST project is going to incorporate our responses into their report. There were 12 areas that we identified that we could improve upon, and we'll be noting that in our future board meetings, what we did and how that improved the system that we currently had in place. That is it.
Mitch?
Yeah, so I'd like to just add on to what Dr. Pogo was just talking about. Messinic Regional School District under Dr. Pogo gave me responses to the recommendations that were in the CAST report, and I'm inputting them now into the report. Expect the report will be done at the end of the week, and then it will be ready to go out to stakeholders and social media. But I want to thank Liz and her leadership for contributing to the report.
Thank you, Mitch. It's been a great collaboration.
It has been.
Any other questions for Dr. Pogorzelski? Thank you, Liz. Assistant Superintendent Melissa Gray.
Good evening, everyone. Liz stole my thunder. I just had a very, very brief congratulatory statement to make this evening about CSI status for Highbridge Hill. So as Liz mentioned, we are no longer a CSI school. We are a school in good standing with regard to state and federal accountability, which simply means that we had an objective, and that was to beat the state's cut scores for the New Hampshire SAS, which Highbridge Hill did. On top of that, when we look at the proficiency scores, we have made a significant measure toward proficiency demonstrated on that, with an increase of about 10 percentage points. It's statistically significant to make that much progress in a year. And it really goes to the hard work of the folks at Highbridge Hill. Mr. Saunders, as you know, joined us halfway or late in the year last year. He came in as a 4th grade teacher. And then with lots of prodding and just really with some graciousness, he stepped up to become the leader of Highbridge Hill, and really his late start really took a back seat to his leadership and his organizational skills. The second thing I wanted to mention was that the state of New Hampshire, we elected to join them in partnership with a consulting firm. That consulting firm didn't come to us with any support until February, early March. At that point in the game, Highbridge was preparing to give this New Hampshire SAS last year. And so a lot of work really went into the SAS before a consultant ever stepped foot in the door. Through the consultancy, though, we do have a plan, a school improvement plan that is driven by and large with things that are needs, things that the school identified as priority areas for improvement. And so the work doesn't go in vain. We are still accountable to that plan. However, we are no longer under the thumb of improvement in that plan. So the work in that plan will continue. We will follow through. With that plan comes the 3 years of funding. We have already received 2 years of that funding, $70,000 in year one last year, $70,000-ish this year again, and we will receive a third allotment next year to continue the work. Some of that has already started. We have spent probably about $70K already in towards the improvement process. So we are looking forward to the continued success of Highbridge Hill. Thank you, Mr. Saunders.
Questions, comments? Ellen?
And I just want to say thank you to Mr. Saunders for that hard work, but I also want to say thank you to Melissa. I know that you have put in a significant amount of work with this, and I really appreciate that.
Amen. Mitch, Tim? Miss TV Paw. Well, I can never say that.
Well, thank you. So we're continuing to welcome new students each week into our district. And my report is just really a shout out to some of the folks in the district. Mrs. Peshka and Mrs. Berger from Highbridge Hill have been going to Boynton Middle School to help out the case managers there to support them with the influx of students that we've had at Boynton. They're providing services and helping to support the 2 case managers that are currently up there. We're wrapping up our first part of our year-long special education audit by the DOE. It's called the PAGS. I'm very happy to kind of report that I've pulled, things from each of the case managers and reviewed them. And I'm really happy with the work they've done as far as progress monitoring our students, which is making sure that students are achieving goals that have been set. Just adherence to the special education process, which we all know can get districts in a huge heap of trouble if we veer from that special ed process. And just some of the results that I've seen is the cohesiveness of the special education team, including service providers, paraprofessionals, case managers, and the processes that we have in the district. So just a real big shout out to the student services team. The results would not, some of the cursory results would not have been as stellar without them. So.
Questions, comments, Jim?
So I'd like to just ask a few questions on the new students. And so it's really interesting that people are coming here, right? What are the general numbers like from the beginning of the year? Can you discuss any, is it like in the half a dozen, or can you not say? Or
not specifically, but I can tell at Boynton, we've had since probably the second week in September, 14 students. These are identified students.
Okay.
That is a huge influx.
That's a whole caseload.
Correct.
That's like
Okay.
what one teacher would typically be responsible for.
Okay.
So
and maybe to Liz, is that in conjunction with just a general enrollment increase, or is it?
we have seen an increase in enrollment. We're kind of astounded by what's happened in the past couple of months.
Okay.
We're trying to look for what exactly, it's different. We
Yeah.
don't typically see this,
Right.
but October was a really odd month that we saw new students every single week.
Okay.
So again, happy to have students. It's presenting some challenges for us right now.
Okay.
But, working through that.
Okay, and the challenges, is there anything that needs to be socialized to get additional support for? Is there anything that?
Well, maybe the cart before the horse, but one of the things that we're looking at is we're going to have to access capital reserve funds to help offset the one of the things that Kristen has explained prior is that the addition in caseload is one aspect of this, but in addition to the caseload, it doesn't necessarily equate in workload. So you can have one student, who comes into district and might have a 15-minute per month consult with speech. That student does have an IEP, but the workload associated with it is relatively low.
Okay.
We're seeing an increase in the actual workload of the students that are coming in. So we're, I think, going to be looking for some positions. We posted online. What did we post for online? We posted for a special ed teacher. The problem is they are hard to come by. We have been extremely lucky to be where we are right now with really promoting from within. A lot of our paras have received certifications and have been working to get there. So we posted. Kristen has investigated contracted services as far as is there a service that we could get that could help provide services.
Right.
It's not ideal, but it's something we're still investigating. And RBT, which we put in the budget for next year, is something that we think we've kind of crossed the threshold for.
Okay.
And Kristen can give more information on RBT if you would
And
like.
what is RBT?
Yes,
Yeah.
Kristen.
What is RBT?
Thanks, Liz. I don't. But an RBT is a registered behavior technician.
Okay.
So they work under our BCBA, who's Miss Brianna McBee, who's really at kind of, her caseload is quite large. She works across 3 schools. And an RBT basically would be able to provide additional services for students, help implement behavior support plans. That means we're kind of hand in hand with teachers to get them to kind of understand the nuances of behavior support plan, work with paraprofessionals, work with administrators. So it's what Miss McBee does now at a larger scale because we require that. They also can provide direct services under Ms. McBee. She's licensed certified BCBA. So it kind of, is attacking kind of a issue that we're seeing with across all districts. Kids' behavior is changing, increasing, and we're trying to get ahead of that by preparing our staff and working with our students. So that's what an RBT gets has a certification. And it's a 40-hour course specifically.
Okay. So somebody who goes to school.
So not necessarily college, it's just a certification course. So
Certification, 40 hours, and then they could get registered as an RBT.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's in a lot of ways, think of it as an assistant. It's an
Mhm.
assistant to the BCBA. Tim, we should also note that we also have posted for an additional PA at Boynton. And if we could hire someone, if we could find someone, we would also be going to capital reserve for that. The problem is we have positions open and we're struggling to fill those. So, but again, to go to capital reserve, we need to know what the amount is, and we don't have those things yet.
Okay, and just for my benefit, what's a PA?
Oh, I'm sorry, a personal assistant.
Personal assistant.
Sorry.
Thank you. That could be anything. All right, thank you. And it's cool. I think it's a really commendation to the work that the district is doing, and we're growing. So it's a nice problem to solve.
Yeah, it is. It is challenging. We're at the max, really, of caseloads don't we have up to 30 and
I think we're actually over right now at Boynton. One of the reasons why we have two staff from Highbridge coming over is because we can't fulfill that need at Boynton right now. So there are staff doing extra duty. They're getting an additional payment for their prep. They're losing their prep, right? So they get paid that stipend. So they're giving that time right there. So again, I think that the staff at, Kristen could speak to this if she wants, but I believe that the staff at Boynton are extremely appreciative of the additional support right now. You have 2 newer special ed staff at Boynton. So it's hard.
any other comments, questions from the board? Thank you, Kristen. Next up is high school principal Stacy Mahakian.
Thank you. I just have some updates from November and what's upcoming for December. So we started November with parent-teacher conference, which was well attended and productive, I think. And then on November 8th, we had our 2nd annual Veterans Breakfast. Mrs. Higley's class cooked breakfast and the NHS served our veterans. It was really great to talk and listen to some of the amazing stories. And also thank you to Mrs. Gigi for organizing the event. Like Eli said, fall sports concluded. We had the fall sports award night to honor our athletes and coaches for a great season. Winter tryouts began, and now we're in full swing of the season. Our guidance department held our financial aid night, and we had several families in attendance. We also had our Apply New Hampshire Day, where New Hampshire college applications are free, and many students participated in that. We also had our PAC, which is our Program Advisory Committee for Auto Program, that was held. We had a nice turnout of local vendors and a representative from NCC. And Mr. Wilson has a great network of supporters to assist with our program, which was nice to finally meet them. NHS also did a food drive collection for the month of November for the St. Vincent de Paul Food Pantry. And freshmen sold some gobblegrams as a fundraiser just before Thanksgiving. Coming up in December, as Liz mentioned, we have the community conversation at 6 o'clock on the language you use in school. We hope that families are able to attend, weather permitting. The NHS is collecting new unwrapped toys throughout the end of this week. So if anyone would like to donate, you can drop them off at our main office. Also, NHS tutoring has begun, and it's very well received. So it's nice to see those students working together. This Saturday is the senior class penny sale. Lots of great items were donated. I can't wait for that. There's some pretty cool stuff, and it is still coming in. On Monday, December 9th, I believe. I wrote the 7th, but I think it's the 9th. The Friends of Messinic will have their second annual holiday bazaar. We will also welcome BMS students to participate. So it'll be bussed over or shuttled over. And next week on December 11th, we have our holiday concert with our new music teacher, Mr. Jufrey. We're really excited for that. Entry is by donation for our music program. December 16th through 20th, the seniors are promoting a spirit week, so there'll be some fun things happening. We're also doing some fun team building activities with our staff. We just began the Secret Elf, and we have 2 dates for making holiday crafts and gingerbread houses. Don't come and look at mine. Our students are also now participating in door decorating contest as well. Our themes for 9th grade are gingerbread. For 10th grade, it is Winter Wonderland. 11th grade is Holidays Around the World, and 12th grade is Holiday Movie themed. So lots of great things happening. We also have late starts on the 6th and the 20th of this month.
I saw everyone scribbling furiously. We're putting together a whole list of dates, and we're going to send it out to you guys. Okay, so no need to continue as Chris and Kevin keep going. Yep. Nope. Yeah.
I know that's already answered all your questions. What was that date again? But any questions or comments from the board? Thank you, Ms. Mahakian. Next on our list is Principal of Boynton Middle School, Kevin Fondas.
Good evening. A few updates. Our Washington, D.C. trip registration has closed, and we're at just about 64 students going. This is the most percentage-wise of a class going, near 80%. Typically, it's lower than that. I got to thank Jocelyn Laponce for picking up the donuts for Boynton, a whole 481 boxes of Krispy Kreme donuts. So I thank her for doing that. We had our 3rd annual Veterans Day breakfast. We had, counting the band, about 100 people in attendance. Just about half of them were veterans and their families. We had our parent-teacher conference earlier in November, and very few open slots. Almost every single one for each grade was filled, including myself. I only had 1 sign up. So, because I do open it up for parents to meet with me as well. Winter sports has started. First games, I believe, are this week. And we have our winter concert on the 12th, the day after the high school. It will be held at the high school at 6 p.m. as well.
Questions or comments? Now you are all going to get the dates.
Chris, I just want to say publicly again, thank you for the wonderful work you did.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. I have a lot of information here about some great stuff going on at Highbridge Hill. In October, we ended our month with a couple of the great Highbridge Hill traditions. Our PTA Harvest Social and our Halloween Parade were very well attended, as always. Parent-teacher conferences were held on November 5th. Highbridge Hill had 90% participation rate by our families, which is really quite high and great to see how many families took the opportunity to come and visit with their teachers and find out how their students are doing. For Veterans Day this year, for the first time, Highbridge, what we did was we had students write letters, color pictures, and then we mailed them off to a company called Operation Gratitude, where they were going to distribute them off to veterans and service members around the world. We are wrapping up our fall session of the Highbridge Elementary Enrichment Program, our HEAP program. This fall session, we had 177 students participating in the activities after school, which is great. This program continues to be really successful, and it's funded with our Widow Island funds to make it happen. So we continue to see really good turnout of students and staff volunteering to offer those for students. During the month of November, as part of our Helping Hands program, we held a food drive. As a school, we collected over 200 pounds of food. It was donated to local organizations to help those in need for Thanksgiving. Again, a great generous showing by the community and families to support those in need. On November 22nd, we held our second annual first grade Friendsgiving feast. Students and staff reflected on what they were thankful for and then shared in some treats and snacks in the cafeteria. On November 26th, our fourth grade students traveled to Concord. They visited the New Hampshire State House and the Shepherd McAuliffe Discovery Center. This trip serves as a culminating social studies activity for their fourth grade unit of study on government. This year, Highbridge Hill has been focusing on the theme of community in our building and what it means to be part of a community. Our school counselors have been supporting this with lessons in our classroom on a regular basis. And our live broadcast of our morning announcements have been focused on this, which happen monthly. Tomorrow, we will have a special guest in-house to join us. That'll be great. To support this even further, we've also started recognizing and highlighting some students daily as part of our morning announcements for acts of kindness in ways that they've supported our Highbridge Hill community. And finally, the most important update we have is that we have exited CSI status. Last year, our students outperformed the state cut scores in all categories. Quite a tremendous accomplishment, to say the least, and worth every bit of celebration. We'll continue to implement our school improvement plan and spend the funds as we had planned to. And we'll continue to work on this momentum and continue the work going forward. I would also like to thank Melissa Gray for her support through the entire process, whether it was guidance or just that phone call to help make sure that we are all on the same page, and the work that was done this summer by team leaders and all those folks that came in over the summer to help work on our plan, working with the consultants in the summer, which is not always the easiest to get people together. We put a call out and they turned out, which was great. And they wrote a really solid plan, which I think we can stand behind. And obviously the proof's in the pudding. And so kudos to the staff for doing that. We had a little celebration at our last staff meeting. It was very fitting. We had a cake and some sparkling cider and just had a little toast to everyone's efforts. So it was really a school-wide really accomplishment, not just one small group, but the whole community. So. And then some upcoming dates I have for you, which you'll get apparently later, is our tree lighting ceremony with Mr. and Mrs. Claus is the 6th, this Friday. Our Christmas concert is in 2 parts because, as you know, if you've been, you can barely fit the people that show up each night. So the 9th and the 10th are our 2 shows. On the 9th, it's students with last names A through K. On the 10th, students' last names L through Z. Snow date for our concert, if needed, is the 11th. Hope is that we don't have to worry about that. And our Christmas Bazaar is Monday the 16th during the school day. Again, a very great tradition we have at the school, very well attended and a great event for the kiddos. They really look forward to it. And then we're hosting a Spirit Week the week before break with fun holiday themes for each day. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Chris. Questions or comments from the board? I only have one, Chris. I'm sure you may find out who the teacher was, but I want to send my thanks to the teacher who put together a program to send letters of thank you to Ronan. He read every one of them, and but really, it was a nice gesture and much appreciated.
Great. Thank you.
Unfinished business.
I was gonna check the temperature.
Oh. Stay. Next is the advisory budget committee recommendations. John or Ed?
Yes. I don't know if you received the email that we sent out last week after we met last Tuesday, but the advisory budget committee reviewed draft 3.
Mr. Rogers, if you could come to the microphone, it'll help our folks who are watching from home. Thank you.
So, yeah, I'm not sure if anybody's had a chance to review what we sent out last week after the advisory budget committee's meeting last Tuesday. But our discussions were largely focused on the 2 proposed special ed teacher positions. And after lengthy discussion, it's our recommendation to approve draft 3. Most of our discussions involved whether or not those positions belong in the general fund or whether or not we should rely on the IDEA grant for funding them. And in the end, it was our opinion that that they should probably be in the general fund. We did. It's definitely what we've spent most of our efforts looking at. There are a lot of other discretionary items in the budget that we don't think have a tremendous impact on the bottom line, and we didn't feel anything else really warranted a recommendation other than this. This seemed to be really the most important thing. One of the good things I would say we found, and I want to thank everyone for all, answering all of our questions. I know we've had a lot of questions, but out of all of that information that you've shared with us, we've come to the conclusion, and I want to thank John Schaumloffel for this. He did a real deep dive on the numbers. The unit costs for special education really aren't that far out of line with the increases we're seeing generally across the rest of the budget. And the real challenge I think we're facing is that the special education enrollments are going up much faster than our overall enrollment. And that is the real challenge. So that's the conclusion we came to. And we will, our next scheduled meeting is next Tuesday, December 10th at 6:30 at Messinic. So we look forward to continuing the iterative process of reviewing the budget with you. But that's the latest report from the ABC.
Excellent. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks.
We're going to, obviously, because we're going to be meeting now the next 2 weeks, the 9th and then the 16th, we'll have an opportunity to be going over a lot of things with the negotiations and the budget. So thank you for the input at this time.
You're welcome.
Draft 3 budget review projections. Rachel Anderson, our business manager. You're up.
So before you should have a summary of changes that were from draft 2 to draft 3. Overall, they're pretty minimal. The first item was in our tech budget. The tech director recommended removing the DNS filter because it was redundant, and to add a new security software due to the rising concerns of cyber attacks and such. We felt that it was a wise investment to do that. Also, we had a staff member inform us that they'll be going from an opt-out, meaning they receive a stipend each year for not taking our health insurance, to taking our health insurance next year. So that will have a little bit of a budget impact as well. Other than that, there's no changes to draft 2 to 3, and it's pretty consistent across the board. I'd be happy to answer any questions though.
Questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, I don't have a question for Rachel, but I have a comment that I would like to add regarding the ABC. I was very pleased that the members of the ABC took their job very seriously and had some robust discussion, robust disagreement, but were able to work cooperatively and respectfully with one another. I also want to say I appreciate the process that was set up by the district to be able to have almost real-time communication between the leadership and the ABC so that they could continue to get the information they needed in order to make informed decisions. And so I was very pleased with how the process went. And knowing that this is a new process we're doing this year, you know, one of the things that we will do in the ABC is lessons learned and what can we do to even make it more effective for next year. But I do appreciate the leadership jumping on the bandwagon and implementing the new process right away this year. So thank you very much.
Thanks for those comments, Mitch, because I agree. I totally agree.
May
Liz?
I'm sorry. So yes, one of the things that we want to do once we're through this budget process and into the new year, Rachel and I have spoke, Steve and I have spoke. We really want to debrief with the board, with the ABC. How did this work? You know, we've talked about the timeline. Again, this is our first year, right? Doing this together. You know, what does the summer look like? Can we move the budget process forward ahead at all? Can we? So these are all things that we want to discuss. What could go better? What did go well? What could have? Where we can improve. I also wanted to comment. I think I heard about the ABC recommendations. I did receive an email, and I apologize. It was on the agenda tonight for them to discuss. I did not send it out. It was an email just saying that they were going to approve. But I will share that with you all.
In the context of debriefing and talking about how the process went, I would also like to request that prior to the deliberative session, that the ABC members be involved in a discussion about how to prepare for that meeting and what their role could possibly be as well.
Yeah, I have no problem at all with that. I'm still trying to look for a date, but we will do that in January right now. I really believe it's very important that we really go over our report. It's deliberative. We make it impactful. We make it as visual as we can, and we really get input from the community. What is it they need to know? A lot of what's presented up there, you know, it's like drinking from a fire hose. We can't do that. We really have to be very pointed in our comments, and I think involving the ABC is a good one. As for the BDA, Liz and I have been talking about that, and I think really we need to look at what worked, what didn't work, or maybe what didn't we think of, because the process can only continue to improve as we go on. So I was very pleased with the outcome. Liz, did you have something else?
There's one more thing I was going to talk about warrant articles.
Do you want me to finish up the agenda item or?
Yeah. Oh, yes, please.
No, it's sorry if that came across sarcastic.
No,
It was not meant to be.
No.
Ladies.
That's my natural tone of
No,
voice.
we're good.
Ladies,
No, we're good. Strong women, we're good.
take it in the hall.
She's taller. Okay. The other, I don't know if I can proceed. The other side of the coin here, other than our expenditure budget, is the revenue projection. This is a very conservative estimate, so don't be alarmed if you see some numbers here that are lower than prior fiscal years. I'm talking to a couple other BAs in the state, and including my own mentor, who's the BA in Welton. She suggested I be conservative with this estimate and present it. It's just an estimate. We'll get a more firm number as the state releases more information, of course. But again, it's just an estimate. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm lost a little bit in my paper, but when I was reviewing it, there was a line item for the amount of grants that we received. I think it was at the bottom of one of the grids.
Mhm.
And that's an accurate number. Like that's a roll up for all of the grant money that comes into the school.
That is a general bucket, yes,
Okay.
of grant money we receive.
Okay. And it includes like Widow Island and,
No, that's a
Okay.
separate entire situation.
okay.
If I could elaborate.
Yeah, please. Yeah. I just want to try to understand like the different categories between state funding, federal funding, town taxes, grants.
So when you're looking at grants here, this is a bucket, a conservative estimate of federal funding that we would receive.
Mm-hmm.
Anything above and beyond that would be brought in as unanticipated revenue and we'd come before the board for that.
Okay.
The federal funds fluctuate. We don't know what we're going to get for federal funds until well after the budget is situated. So we have to go with what we currently make and what we currently receive for federal funds, but be conservative in knowing that each year our federal funds are decreasing over time.
They are.
So they are.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So that amount you'll see has carried over a couple of years. It's sort of been the number that has been comfortable for BAs before Rachel to put in the budget and say, okay, this is where we're going to estimate the revenue.
Got it.
It's a safe number.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the revenue projection? Or do you want any explanation? I mean, I don't want to prolong it.
No.
If you don't want to.
Does the board have any further question? Rachel, go ahead.
I did want to make a quick note about warrant articles. So we'll be in the next few weeks, warrant articles have to be set by the end of December. So we'll be talking, with Kristen and with Craig about, is there a need to increase what we're putting into the capital reserve accounts? We are creating a technology account, so we're gonna have to do that with a warrant article as well. So we expect warrant articles to be done in the next few weeks.
Questions about any of
I'd
that?
like to add, ask an additional question related to warrant articles.
Sure.
Will Greenville and New Ipswich Municipal report to us if citizens put a warrant article into the system?
It's a good question. I don't have an answer.
What do you mean? What do you mean by put a warrant article into the system?
So there's last year there was a couple citizen created warrant articles to.
Yep. So they deliver them to the SAU.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have to deliver to the SAU by a certain date.
Okay.
And that's how you would be notified of them.
And then if that happens, and we'll talk about it at a board meeting, and it'll be out in the open then. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to get the process. Just in case.
I wasn't sure what you were asking, but you're saying before deliberative because they have to get X number of signatures.
Yeah,
to submit the
exactly.
warrant
I'm
article.
looking for process, and I didn't know how to ask the
Yep.
question, so I just kind of worked through it. And there's
It
none.
goes through here, and then that gives we don't get any surprises from the board,
Yeah,
and then we can discuss.
Exactly,
as
and
well.
that's why I wanted to be open about it.
Yep.
And at this time, there has been zero.
Okay.
None
We have
received.
none.
Okay, thank you.
The next order of business is co-curricular committee recommendations. That would be Principal Fondas.
Hi, me again. So the co-curricular met again on November 25th, re-looked at all our stipends, discussed every sports stipend, sorry, just coaching stipends at this time. And looked at every single one, had very lengthy discussions. I think our meeting was over 2 hours that day. And we've come up with this recommendation now, very similar to what I had presented last time. The bottom dollar did decrease just slightly, around $1,000. The changes are the assistant coaching positions versus a JV coach. Assistant coaches would receive 56 to 65% of a varsity coach of that sport. There's a spreadsheet linked to this memo that shows each dollar amount, each salary, sorry, and the dollar difference for each coaching position. And then again, like before, it was due to practice schedules, length of season, and things of that nature. The total, if accepted by the board and move forward, the total would be $13,460 increase from this current year.
Questions or comments from the board on co-curriculars activities?
Yes, I was on that committee, so I just wanted to add something. If you look at the spreadsheet, you see that for many positions, it says JV coach. So we budgeted for JV coach because you never know if you're going to have a JV team. When there isn't a JV team, often, not always, but oftentimes there's an assistant coach. The assistant coach stipend would be lower than what is listed for JV. So this is the max amount that we're asking. It could potentially be less.
Good point. Yeah. Good point. Any further questions? Mr. Fondas is looking for approval of that this evening, I believe. Did I have a motion to approve the recommendation from Mr. Fondas as presented?
I will make the motion to approve the recommendations from Mr. Fundus.
Mitchell makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Tim makes the second. Is there any further discussion from members of the board? All right, moving to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? It passes unanimously. Good work, Kevin. And to other members that were on the committee. So it's a good job. Well done. Moving on to new business. The first item we have is the FY26 adequacy aid estimate, and that would be Business Administrator Rachel Anderson.
So you should have a memo in your drive about this, but to summarize, this kind of goes with my revenue projections for fiscal year 26. The state on November 15th released their adequacy aid estimates. This allows school districts to work that into their budget process, and they guarantee that amount up to 95%. So if you're a spreadsheet geek, I've included a couple spreadsheets for you to look at. The first one is the combined Greenville and New Ipswich totals or estimates for the upcoming fiscal year 26 compared to prior years. Then it's separated from just Greenville and just New Ipswich. These are the numbers that we really use to determine what we appropriate in local taxation. So that's helpful to understand where those numbers come from. I also included an explanation that the Department of Education sends out that explains how they calculate the cost of an adequate education and the dollar amount. So this year, it did increase a little bit to $4,265.64 per student that we have in average daily membership. And that memo from the state kind of really breaks that down if you're curious and want to get into the nitty gritty. But overall, we are receiving as a district a little more than last year, but it's mainly due to Greenville and their extraordinary needs grant increase for Greenville this year. And that's calculated on property values. And since New Ipswich has such a high property value, we do not receive that type of grant, but Greenville does. Overall, we are losing a little bit due to the change in the Hold Harmless grant. And if you're not familiar with the Hold Harmless grant, that was something the state added in legislation once they changed the funding formula a couple years ago. And every other year that will reduce by 20%. And this year, it was the year it hit for the first time, a reduction of 20%, which resulted in the district receiving about $215,000 less than last year. And it's going to continue every other year. It's going to reduce by 20% until it's gone. So that's something we have to plan for and anticipate. That's a significant chunk of money.
The state identified us as a district that wants to keep an eye on this because they put us in a category that they could forecast problems with the reduction of that fund. So we want to be aware that we're not going to be getting as much moving forward until it's reduced.
And of course, once that reduces, that shifts the burden to the local taxpayer. So that's something to be mindful of constantly. And as a taxpayer myself, I understand that. So any questions on the estimate for the adequacy aid?
Questions or comments from the board, even on the state legislation that is reducing that? Okay, thank you, Rachel. I'm not sure how to say this, but Ms. Mahakian, you are going to talk to us about a snip back donation.
I can also speak to that. It's a program. It's a program, so no one be alarmed. It's a program.
I was reading it right off the page, Stacy. I just want you to know.
Yes. So we are looking at for the athletic program. Mr. Cocazella has been looking at different types of recording during practices, during games, that we would have a company come in. They would set up recording devices, and we would get real-time statistics for our athletes. So the first one we're looking at was pretty exorbitant. This new one that he found is, I would still say expensive, but more reasonable. And he has been able to find sponsors for that. So vendors are contributing to the cost to see how we like it. And it is completely, the maintenance and the cost right now is up to the company. We will have the switch on, switch off ability for the devices, and we'll see how we like it if we are able to accept the donation.
The donation's $3,500.
Okay, I was going to just ask. So you're looking for us to, for the board to accept the donation of $3,500 to go towards that process?
Yeah, it's several vendors, but the total amount is
Yes,
$3,500.
Questions or comments from the board?
Just a question related to the donations. Is
Mhm.
that expected to be an ongoing year-over-year donation cycle, or is it going to eventually kind of migrate into a normal expense?
The hope is that we'll continue to get sponsors, because through this programming, they also are able to purchase advertising because it's a video program.
Okay.
So the hope is that we will continue. Our boosters are contributing and other contributors too, but it could be something that he may be looking at. We may be looking at Widow Island funds too to supplement. But for the most part, John's pretty confident that we will get vendors to support this going forward, again, if we like it.
Okay, great. And the last question would be, so the athletic director would coordinate the activities, right? The donation activities and making sure that the vendors come in and will donate. Is it the athletic director's
Yes, he's
position?
actually already done that.
Okay, but for ongoing.
For going
years.
forward,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Because John may not be the AD forever, so.
True.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? The chair will entertain a motion to accept that donation. Actually, it's a group donation, but the total amount is $3,500 to initiate the program.
I'll make that motion.
Ellen makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Tim seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Passes unanimously.
Thank you. They'll be
It
very
sounds like a
excited.
very interesting program.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it as well. Thank you.
I can remember looking at tapes with the coach saying, "You see what you did there?" Yeah. The next thing on here is policies. We're on the third read for these policies. We are going to be looking at that. I'm not sure we need 3 reads on policies. We may go down to a 2 read. But right now we're on the third read. I'm sorry.
That is that one. It's only 2 reads.
Oh, BCB.
BCB.
Okay. So all but BCB are third reads, which means they go into effect after tonight.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. All 3 reads, all of these are third read. The BCB, the policy adoption, actually stipulates a two read cycle, unless there was contention or
I
confusion.
knew we were going to that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry. I'm
no,
sorry.
that's okay. Questions or comments? Usually by the third read, we've gone through revisions and comments and whatever. The third read simply puts it into the policy manual.
I have 2 questions. On the unauthorized communication devices, is there another document where, in the case of an urgent or emergent call, if a child does not have a cell phone, what the procedure would be?
I'm sorry, I don't under,
If either a parent needed to get a hold of a child or a child needed to get a hold of a parent, and they're not going to pull out their cell phone. So is there a process or procedure in place?
there's already a process and procedure in place. There's parents are encouraged to call the main office, and students are likewise encouraged to come to the main office. You can ask any of the principals, but it's a routine process. I need to call my mom, and sometimes it's saying I need to call my mom. Do I have permission to use my phone, not just necessarily using the school's phone?
Okay.
But again, we recognize that there are times when kids need rides, and not all the kids have cell phones, so all the schools are accommodating to that. And I believe that's actually currently in our handbook as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Then one other question on the fire safety protocol. If I have read it correctly, people can bring in their own radio or a lamp or something to use. Is there a process for inspecting it and inspecting the device? I know that in hospitals, if somebody brings it in, it has to go through an inspection before it can be used.
There's no process right now. The big issue that we have is that some staff like to bring in some of the more concerning
Let's talk coffee makers,
appliances.
heating plates, hot plates, microwaves,
Refrigerators.
any of that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Lamps haven't posed too much of a problem at this point. Craig has had to address some how they're plugged in sometimes. Multiple chains of extension cords, not the appropriate way to plug in the lamp. But I think this was more designed for the bigger issue that presents more of a safety hazard. I know that when we've had the state come in the past, they will look at furniture, they will look at, bookcases, anything that's flammable. So when they would come in, they would probably ask, but to my knowledge in these walkthroughs, no one's really questioned like an actual lamp.
Or a cord, like
Cords,
a
they'll
frayed
question cords.
cord. that-
Yep, they'll question the cords.
Okay.
Yep.
And some of that, I think that's a good question, Mitch, but some of that has to do with common sense. If you bring in an antique lamp with a frayed cord, we're going to pull you aside and talk to you about that. Craig has been very active in looking at that, and he was really concerned about those things that were potential fire hazards, like the heating plate and the coffee makers and that sort of thing. So, but that's a good question. We'll consider that the third read then. If there are no other comments or questions, the policies that are listed here, A through G, will go into effect as of tonight. Personnel, I do not believe we have anything for personnel.
I have one comment on
Okay.
personnel. We have one person on the personnel report, and if
Right.
you saw the report, it has two different rates for this individual.
Right. Sorry.
One of the rates is for her daily rate right now as a substitute, and as soon as we receive her EA, which is her emergency authorization, and that's through the state for the long-term subposition, we would like to request that we waive the 20-day, which is a typical practice to waive the 20 days when we know that they're going to be here for an extended period of time. Again, we are working with her to get that, so it could be 2 days, it could be in 2 weeks.
I didn't think of it as a personal issue. It's really an FYI. I mean, we've known about the situation right now. When the EA comes in, it just takes effect. Okay, final public comments. Seeing none. We do not have non-public session tonight. So Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do we need to approve this?
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Hold that motion.
Okay.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. On the personnel report, we do need to approve the personnel report, the long-term substitute in science.
And I'm asking to waive the 20 days.
Right.
Yeah, and you need a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion because we're waiving the 20
So
days.
I make a motion to accept the personnel report and approve the waiver of the 20-day stipulation.
Thank you, Tim.
And I'll second that motion.
Ellen seconds that motion. Further discussion? Maybe I need further discussion on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Now the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'm going to think about, no,
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Mitch makes the motion.
I'll second it.
Kim seconds. Thank you, people. Have a good evening.
All in favor?
Oh, you're in favor. Yeah, yeah.
Liz, where's this? I have a question.